On 6 August 2021, we held the second edition of TechTalks by Get, where we hosted Henry Chong, the CEO of Fusang Corporation. Henry presented his talk about the challenges of building a digital-first business to more than 100 Gamudians across the group. We also had a panelist discussion comprising of Henry, Gamuda's Deputy Group Managing Director Rashdan Yusof, as well as our young up-and-coming engineer Bryan Chua. Here are some key takeaways from the session. 1. The job to be done.
Even though all the jobs to be done are the same, so our belief is that in a digital securities world, you will still need lawyers and issuers and banks and brokers. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same firms who do those jobs today. And even though that job to be done, as I call it, is the same, when you look at the firms doing the job, it's completely changed. And in theory, there's no good reason why they shouldn't be the leaders in the next technological revolution, but for some reason, incumbent firms rarely are able to make that metamorphosis.
2. Sometimes you have to focus on things that don't change.
Humans don't really change. Technology changes, but our behaviors don't. And that's why when we look at a world of rapidly changing technology, which can be very scary, I can tell you, Fusang is this is what we do for a living in this digital securities industry, and sometimes it changes so fast, it's hard even for us to keep pace. And I think the key is something that I learned from Jeff Bezos, which is you need to focus on the things that don't change. What doesn't change? Human behavior doesn't change.
3. Don't get caught up in the technology.
What's the greatest challenge in your digital transformation journey? And what's the most important consideration for a large organization that is going through a similar transformation?
In my experience, the problem is rarely technology, and it's usually people. Sometimes people within the organization, and I think the most important thing is having people who have that mindset I was talking about earlier, where they don't get caught up in the technology and they try and focus on the job to be done, and asking that question of what are we really doing for our customer? And I see this for companies everywhere, where they, if you ask them what the company does, they will tell you the technology they use, as opposed to the job that they really do for customers.
Something that we all must realize is that there is actually a significant amount of vested interest. So in the case of the banks, they are the ones getting disrupted, basically. But keep the faith, persevere, make sure you put out what the value proposition is. And I think with that perseverance and passion, I believe at least, and as well as the intention is always good, the what's just and what's right will always win the day.
Gamuda itself is actually embarking on this journey of digitalization, which I feel is very interesting. And being able to join the team Get, where we are trying to actively participate in this role of digitalization in the company is very interesting. When we move forward, we try to bring new mindsets from these kind of new startups into the company, and we can work in a faster and more agile pace. That's what I feel. And there's much potential for Gamuda to grow, I would say.
4. The spirit of innovation.
We're talking in the context of fintech, right? What do you see that might be transferable in construction?
It's not so much the underlying technology or technical improvement itself. What is important is basically the spirit of innovation and the spirit of embracing change. That, I think, is what's perhaps missing very much so in the construction industry. Don't do innovation for innovation's sake. Do it because you are making someone's lives better. You're improving a process. You're making it more efficient. Make sure that those are your objectives. If you constantly do that, then you'll never veer from the path of innovation.
5. Having a blank sheet of paper.
If you look at the States and what Elon Musk again is doing in the Boring Company, where he's taking tunneling to the next level, and his engineers are literally rocket scientists from SpaceX to run this really weirdly named company called the Boring Company. I'm sure it's not boring at all. So there you go. I think that inspires me actually, and I hope it inspires each and every one of you. I hope within our midst, we have our own Elon Musk somewhere. It could be Bryan, it could be anyone else in there.
It's always about framing the problem and looking at it in an innovative way, right? Like there's always a new way to solve a problem. Even waste can be turned into bricks that you can sell for $200 a brick. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's just amazing.
Yeah. And I think it actually helps sometimes to have, the reason why I think he has rocket scientists is not just because they're smart or good engineers, but because they have no experience building tunnels. They were a fresh eye, top down, and say, okay, we're physicists, we're engineers, we know how that works. Let's start with a blank sheet of paper. We know what we need to do. We need to build a tunnel from A to B. There are certain physical laws and constraints that are immutable, but within that context, if we had to start over, what would we do? And again, if in many cases, if you're too caught up with the problem, then it's very hard to kind of start from a blank sheet of paper and radically try and redesign something.
With more exciting speakers lined up in the coming months, be sure to watch out for announcements on email, workplace, and on the Get Discord channel. GET, elevating digital excellence across Gamuda.